Hello, everybody. Looks like we don't have an intro tonight. Don't know why, but it decided it was not going to introduce me. Maybe it'll show up here in the middle of my talk. We'll see. Welcome to Masterworks. My name's Jason Meyer. And yes, Claudia, I will show you where you can get to those sketch exercises. And hello, Katie. Tonight, what we're going to do is this month in classes, what we're doing is we're finishing our projects. And every few months, what I like to do is, instead of me telling you what to do, let you get in charge for a month, right? Because as you become an artist, nobody's going to be there to tell you what to do. So this month is about that. And so tonight, what I thought I would do is let's look at some different artists and see what their subject matter is. Because this morning in class, we talked a little bit about finding your subject matter, finding out what interests you, and making sure whatever interests you also makes a good painting. So we're going to look at that. But first, let me see if we can't find out where these online exercises are that Miss Claudia is looking for. So let's see, we will preview here. Of course, as an enrolled student. There we go. All right, how about we share a screen? We'll bring this back up for us. And here we're in our online school. So you're in your April Group A oil painting class, exercises. And then in that class, the toolkit is your first chapter. The second chapter, week 1, exercises. That first video, flat tone charcoal exercise. There you go. You hit play, and don't forget you unmute right down there, and everything you need. So I hope that helps you out. If not, we'll get Cindy on it, and I'm sure she will help you out with that. So I hope that helps out, Claudia. Let's see. So let's go back to the camera. And Miss Susan made it tonight. Good evening, Susan. All right, so what we're going to do tonight is we're going to talk about subject matter. So we're going to go through different artists and different subject matter, and we're going to talk about why it makes a good painting and how they twisted things so that it was a good painting. All right, so let's start with here we go. So this painting here is usually a little tighter than I like. Some people like a really refined, defined. But why does this work, and how was he able to get away with putting all that detail everywhere? I mean, there's detail on the floor, there's detail on the wall, there's detail on the columns, there's detail on the chair, there's detail on the pottery. So if there's detail what makes this a good painting? Well, you remember I told you there's a million ways to do this. And what makes a good painting is more or less. So is there any way that you can tell me that this isn't where we're going to go? Right here, this big piece of yellow fabric. All right, what if I turn it sideways? Is your eye still going to go there? Where does your eye go now? Is it totally changed now that it's a different form? No. It's going here. All right? Even that's somewhat quiet. Look how quiet this is compared to that. And when we're talking about quiet, notice, does that look like the brightest tile on the floor to you? And do these tiles get weaker and weaker and weaker as we go over to the edge? And look, he's made them weaker as they go back too. So, in short, the reason he can have all this detail, the reason he can have a cat, the reason they can have all this detail on the wall and the mirror and the fabric, the columns, is because the detail doesn't overcome the strength of the focal point, right? There's still an order to it all. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Okay, well, here's almost the exact opposite. All right, how much detail's in here? Well, not very much. So what makes this a good painting? Is there a more and a less? Is there a definite winner here? What was our definite winner in our last one? It was our yellow, our piece of yellow right here. And now we've got a piece of quote unquote white right here, right? Sitting on a green background. And does this green go from near to far? It goes in light and shadow, but ultimately it's just about a white spot on green. And yeah, it's a lady in a hat having a picnic on a sunny day. We can talk about all that, but what makes that lady on a blanket in the grass a good painting? All right, well, it's visually interesting because of the way he's organized it. A highest society portrait, maybe? It's almost hard for me to consider this a portrait because it's so little about the personality. Right? Just so little about the personality. Look, your eye's going to go to the big spot. This is part of it. But you see how that's all one big spot? Your eye's going right there. Right? No matter where we're at, that's where your eye... And how else does your eye go? Well, it's surrounded by this, let's just call it black and blue. And then right around that, look at that dynamic white. So are we kind of taking off from right here and kind of going radial? For sure, for sure. But do you guys see where your eye's going? And this works because of the background he's chosen. What do we have here? What do you guys think this is about? Orange and purple, maybe? Purple and orange? Well, yeah, we could play them against one another like that. Why not? Make everything really gray and quiet. With just a little bit of color. And even less color, but stronger. How else might we do an orange purple? Is this the only scenario you could envision an orange purple color scheme? Before we leave this, are you guys noticing the strong triangle right here? Look how he's made this gray ladder interesting. Well, with the definite light dark pattern. T T T T T T. Right? Versus that to what's this light dark pattern doing? Not much, but we've got the color purple here. In the shape, no less, of a human, which we're always going to recognize and take interest in. So there's a certain psychological weight here. There's a certain drawing value weight with the value changes here. And then, of course, the weight here is both value and color. All right, so what else could we do with orange and purple? Could you do that? Right? Yeah, there's some green in here, but we've got orange and purple. 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 Right? A little bit of green, a little bit of green. Can you guys see that? That orange pattern against the purple? Right, you got to see the bigness of this, because if you try to paint this painting tree by tree by tree, oh, buddy, oof. Yeah, good luck. Good luck. You're going to be busy for a little while. But if you can see an overall light-dark pattern, maybe let the light go to the orange side. All right, the gray to the purple side. Oh, might be onto something. So this is supposed to be about subject matter. It is about subject matter, but maybe not the subject matter you were thinking about. Right? I really haven't mentioned too much of the objects in the paintings. I've been talking about the ideas behind the objects. And so I'd like you guys to start considering your subject pattern, or excuse me, your subject matter to be more your idea than the object. How does your paintings change when we do that? Right? What if our real subject matter is our idea? Well, what do you mean your idea? Well, maybe the idea of orange, purple, green, executed in a certain value pattern, right? With a certain placement on the canvas. Right? In other words, I'd like to encourage your subject matter to become more designed, more based on paint, right? Because you can't do a tree. What are you going to do? How are you going to do a tree? You got some warm paint. That's never going to make a tree, right? So forget about making a tree. But you can make color and value patterns with your paint. And then those patterns can read as a tree or read as a person. Well, what do we have here? Is this just about light? Right? But it's a little different take on the light. It's about the light through water, isn't it? And this, what colors do we have here? Well, I see blue. Okay, well, yeah, easy. What else do you see? What are the other colors you see? Do you see a little green? Right? Do we see blue and blue-green? Anything else besides those two? Are there any warm colors in there? Yeah, there's some warm color. Right, approaching the orange. It's pretty faded. All right, and a little less warm here. So notice as we come down, there's kind of less warmth and less warmth. By the way, how much warmth total in this painting? Not very much. Right? So this is much more about this value, right? Or this light spot. Yeah, it's in the shape of fish, and yeah, it looks like it's under. You can't do underwater with paint. Right? We can do value patterns and edges and shapes, though. Well, that's an interesting take on light. What other ways can we imagine light? Like, if you just stop for a second and light, how many ways can you imagine light happening? Right? You imagine the sun hitting the water, snorkeling. Maybe a fish tank inside. Would that be a little bit different? An interior bedroom. A sunset, a sunrise. Can you think of any other ways you might envision, illustrate, paint light? Did you think of that way? How about an alien spaceship shooting a beam of light down, sucking up shopping carts and construction cones? Again, subjects matters more about organizing your light-dark patterns. Because a good artist can literally take anything and turn it into a good painting. So while we're here, rather than just being astonished by this, which I hope you are, let's get a little analytical with it. What makes this so stark? Right? Do you get that? It's kind of a stark. Well, yeah, the lack of people, for sure, for sure. But there seems like there's tons and tons of light. Right? There seems like I see a lot of lights all over through here. And some very strong gravitational light. But how much color do you see in here? A little bit of blue. Is there color anywhere else? You know, you might convince me there's a little there and a hint of it back. Not really. Right? Yeah, this is warmer, a little yellow, this is a little greener. But as far as color, look how much little color is in this. Look how little organic. Everything's mechanical, man-made, hard-edged, manufactured. Right? Even the quote-unquote sameness of the lights. Yeah, they're diminishing and they go back in. But right, we've got this industrial kind of pattern happening out here. With, except this bit of green, a complete lack of any natural color. So how much color do you need in a painting to have a good painting? First time I ran into this artist, and I'm sorry I forget the name now, but it blew me away. Because these were great paintings, and they were just of shoes. But notice how the image doesn't lose any of its impact, even if we disorient it, turn it completely upside down. So, do you see white in there? Yeah, pretty strong. It's pretty strongly organized in a particular area, isn't it? Yeah. All right, then what's our color? What color do we see in here? I hope you said blue, because this is predominantly blue. But did you say red? I'm curious. Did anybody think, oh, red's the color in here? Now, true, there's a little bit of red, but look how much red there is to blue. So what would lead you to think, oh, red is the color? Well, our eyes so prefer that warm spectrum that it almost appears to us like the red is stronger and more than the blue. Do you see that? But can you look at this in an analytical way? To where, I mean, how much red is in? We've got a couple of stripes. And how much blue? Well, we also got stripes of blue. We got the All-Star back here. We've got the blue jeans back there, the All-Star. More stripes. We've got the shadow. We've got the blue jeans, right? Much more blue than red, but that red is stronger. Okay, so not all colors created equal. And do we have gray? Yeah, and do we have dark? So we have a light, a color, a gray, and a dark. All right, with some hard and soft edges, some interesting shapes. This is, you know, by the way, this little bit of detail right here, notice it's not solid. We've got some, and then it's faded, goes out, and then a little bit of detail. The little bit of detail of the bending of, there's a stretch and of the bend. You know, those things matter. That little bit of shadow right there. So how much does it take to tell a story, to get a lot of action in your work? I mean, do you need anything besides light? Oops. Do you need anything besides light? Right? How many of us would go in there and be working on all kinds of details on that ship and on that boat? And this and that and this and that. No need. No need. Again, I hope this is sparking your imaginations for, you know, what's possible, what you can do. So there's a particular reason I put this one in here tonight. And where do your eyes go? Where do your eyes go here when you look at this? Right? Well, they should naturally go to the flowers, right? Right to the flowers, and it shouldn't really matter. But one of the exercises for this week is to carry flat tone. To practice making flat charcoal tone. Well, where might that be handy? Well, do you think if you had a hard time carrying this value across here, as an even, right? Do you see how all of this value here is relatively even and less than this value? Right? It's a fundamental skill you have to have. And then look how even, quote unquote, the green tone is right there. So that skill to carry those values through, do you see we've got a lighter value and then a dark value in here, and that medium value, the dark value, and then our light. Boom, 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 boom. So carrying those tones. Now, you know, you might go, "Gah, that is like the perfect piece of granite. Where am I going to find a piece of granite that tone?" Because, you know, most of the granite that I see is just so much brighter than that. And when I set this still life up, that granite underneath just totally outshines the flowers. Well, I'd be willing to bet you $100 that when this was actually set up, that what that's sitting on top of was brighter than those flowers. But he took responsibility for his paintings. He made some decisions and said, no, I'm making the flowers brighter, and all the flowers are going to be brighter than any of the tabletop. And he executed it such. Right? The thing to remember is you are in charge. Right? If you're just copying what you see and not holding a tone, you still have made a decision not to take responsibility. What about those even tones? Right? How are you going to get this shadow darker and more than this shadow? Well, you've got to have the ability to hold those values. Because if you can't hold a dark value, right, versus this kind of gray, darker gray value, and you get some of this gray in here and you get some of this dark back here, well, guess what? Your painting doesn't read anymore. All right, so we've just got a couple minutes left. So we had an exercise. When did I give that to you guys? I think that was on Sketch Club, maybe. I don't know. But it was to have an abstract shape that was both stable and dynamic. Do you think that may be some of the concept this guy has going on? Stability versus dynamic? Right? Do these rocks feel stable? What about this splashing water? Well, it's very dynamic. But then we get some stability here. But dynamic stability. It seems to be a thing with this guy. What's the deal? Well, we got a lot of stability here, and then boom, a lot of instability here. And generally, I would say don't ever do this. You don't ever want a hard edge back at the horizon like that. Don't ever do that. Unless you have this much dynamic to where you need that much stability. Right? And notice how he's included these birds swirling around in part of the dynamic. Right? Do you feel that? The dynamic and state versus the stable and solid. Right? It's almost a violent crash of water. Versus the serenity of the rocks. So how is this shape playing against these shapes? So again, the idea of that exercise we did all the other day. Let me have a abstract shape that's both stable and dynamic. How did he do? What do you think? Well, if you can't tell, he did great. He did great. Look at that. Look at that. That's insane. I've seen some of these in person, and they're even better in person. I mean, this paint that's put on here, it's just nuts. It's crazy. Right? So you have like this industrial accident over here next to this just total stability. Right? And it's the ability to balance those two forces that make these such exciting paintings. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I ran a minute over, but I hope you guys had a good time. So we looked at some different artists tonight, and we talked about subject matter, but maybe not subject matter as you thought about it in the past, but the subject matter of the ideas behind the painting, and the subject matter in terms of the idea as in the parameter of what colors did I use, what kind of shapes do I use. And it really depends on the ideas you're trying to express. Okay, so that'll be Masterworks for this week. Tomorrow morning we'll be back with Morning Jumpstart. So if you haven't got some stuff turned in to take a look at, turn some things in. I think I have a few openings. I hadn't seen too much in the email, but I'm sure some of that will be coming tonight. So tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., we'll look at some of your guys' work and see what we can come up with. All right, everybody, we do have a brand new Procreate, Introduction to Procreate class starting Wednesday night. It's going to be 7 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, and it's going to run an hour. It'll be about a half an hour of instructions with questions and answers. And then the last half hour we'll just draw together so that you can test out what you learned. And if you run into any snags, I'll be there to help you out and answer the questions. So if you got an iPad and use the Procreate and you've been stumbling around, can't quite find your way through there, this is the class for you. So get in touch and get signed up by Wednesday night. All right, everybody. We love you all. Thank you so much. And hope to see most of you back in the morning. Good night, Susan. Night, Claudia. Night, everybody. Bye-bye.